Zombie games, just like zombies themselves, sometimes just will not die. But despite a lot of people thinking the zombie concept is played out, there's actually quite a few cool zombie-themed games dropping in 2021 that look really promising. We've got about 10, so let's break them all down. Of course, starting off with number 10, Evil Dead the Game. This was revealed at last year's Game Awards, and it's developed by Saber Interactive and published by Boss Team Games. Saber Interactive has been making games for many years of varying degrees, sometimes ports, sometimes games, but this seems like something entirely different for them. From what we know so far, this looks to be like more of an arena-based Evil Dead style game with cooperative PvE stuff and PvP gameplay involving all of the characters from the Evil Dead universe and blasting some creatures. Apparently there is going to be a skill tree involved and multiple weapons and gadgets that you can use, not to mention the fact that, they have Bruce Campbell as Ash, that's the most important thing, but we also see characters from throughout the movies and even Ash versus Evil Dead, which is just a welcome surprise. I've said this in previous videos, but there was a time when we had a lot more Evil Dead games out there, and maybe we took it for granted. Still, we're very happy to finally get a new one. Even if it's more of an arena-based multiplayer thing, it could still be a lot of fun, considering the IP it's based on. Next, over at number 9, we have Project Ill. You've probably seen this one floating around on social media. I think we've highlighted it in the past. Essentially, this is seemingly early in the works. We might see an early access version of it this year. Apparently, it's from a small developer still seeking funding, but essentially, it's a really intense, weird, gross, and ambitious first-person zombie shooter. We've got some gameplay and some concept footage that seems like it is indicative of the game, and you can immediately see why I said ambitious, because the gore and dismemberment stuff they have going on here is really crazy. I'm curious to see what else this game is going to do to stand out other than just some cool gore and some first-person shooting. It needs more than that, but a lot of people have jumped on board and are into the idea. So even though we're only looking at tiny glimpses of ideas of the game, we're hoping that we see it big in 2021. Next at number 8, we have a PC game called A Way to Be Dead. I'll be honest, this one on the list seems like one of the games that still looks a little rough, but the idea is pretty cool. It's an asymmetrical multiplayer game with deep horror elements, and essentially it takes place in a zombie-infested hospital, and you play as either one crazy infected doctor, multiple patients, and maybe even turn into zombies themselves. That's what the game seems to be implying, and that seems like it could be the best element just from some of the early glimpses we've seen with some of the animations and some of the gore. But I'd say more than anything with this game, even though the 4 versus 1 horror ideas we've seen before and we've even seen playing as the creatures before, the atmospheric effects they have going on in this game seem pretty cool. Reminds me of the old days of Resident Evil and Silent Hill. Apparently it's going to be extremely limited. You can only carry and use one item at a time to make things more stressful, but apparently there's going to be some sort of progression with updating your abilities in game. There's going to be environmental interactions that might help with certain things, and you're going to be able to customize a bunch of different variations for the maps, which seems like it could be fun for some experimentation. I'd say definitely this is a game for people who are into Dead by Daylight. It is from a small developer, but we think we're going to see it in 2021. We just wanted to put something on this list and in front of your eyes that maybe you wouldn't have stumbled across otherwise. Next at number 7, we have Synced, Off-Planet. Now, despite the generic sounding name, this seems like a cool enough concept, if not a little bit derivative. Essentially, it's PvE and PvP, where you're fighting in a post-apocalyptic world for resources against other people, while also trying to escort some survivors to safety. There's loot, there's crafting, there are survival elements, and lots of other players to worry about, but also the PvE elements. Hordes and hordes of zombies and cool creatures. Technically in this game, they're not really zombies. They're like people that have been taken over by meddling with nanotechnology. And yeah, I know we're getting lost in the weeds, but if you look at it at face value, it seems like zombies, right? So we're counting it, especially because it seems like an interesting, fun third-person shooter. Now, it is worth mentioning that it is being published by games giant Tencent. Maybe this is their answer to something like Division. They want to crack into that PvE, PvP market. I don't know for sure, But the game does look pretty with ray tracing and a bunch of NVIDIA support, and we're expecting to see it in some form in 2021. Next at number 6, we have After the Fall, which is a new game from the developers behind Arizona Sunshine, and essentially, it looks like they're taking VR zombie blasting to the next level. We see a lot of chaotic, cool action. We see some kind of over-the-top wild weapons, including a wrist-mounted launcher. It is multiplayer focused and takes place in Los Angeles 20 years after the apocalypse, but with a cool ice theme and generally just an art style that to me kind of reminds me of Borderlands a little bit. Just considering that Arizona Sunshine was one of the cooler zombie shooters made for VR that just really made a big splash, we're really excited to see what the developer publisher Vertigo Games can do with a bigger budget, more eyes on them, and more ideas. And now we talk about VR games a lot here at gameranx, but we know that they're still not super duper mainstream or anything like that, but we gotta give credit to Arizona Sunshine, the previous game from these developers, of course. That game was incredibly successful with not only just the blasting, but the platforms, the level of support, the high quality nature of the game. So After the Fall can really take it to the next level, but I am curious to see how it fares as a multiplayer title. That's something that's a little bit trickier to nail down with VR, and admittedly might sometimes have an even smaller audience. Because what we've seen so far just looks like a lot of fun, and it's releasing apparently early 2021. Next at number 5, we have The Last Stand Aftermath, which is the follow-up to the surprisingly awesome Last Stand game. The previous Last Stand game was actually a Flash game, believe it or not, but it was a good one, where you gun your way through a zombie apocalypse. A little bit more Walking Dead style. Think abandoned neighborhoods, abandoned cars everywhere. There's a big emphasis on combat and the weapons and the feel and just how the shooting works. It's 3 dimensions around you. That's incredibly satisfying when you tie that up with crafting and everything like that. But judging from the looks of this one, especially as an upgrade from the last game, the mood and atmosphere looks top tier. And especially for a game of this genre where you wouldn't really expect it, this just looks like a good, fun single player time blasting zombies. It's going to be on Steam and it's coming sometime in 2021. Next at number 4, we have The Day Before. From what we've seen of this so far, not to be reductive, I think the elevator pitch is essentially The Division mixed with The Last of Us. You are placed in a big, realistic-looking city with a bunch of other players in more of an MMORPG style setting, but you're running around, you're looting, you're engaging with other players, but also watching out for zombies. This concept seems like a no-brainer. We're actually surprised we haven't seen it more before, and just like the little gameplay trailers that we've gotten have blown us away. We're still skeptical of like how the game will actually be in motion with players messing around and doing whatever, but the systems, some of the combat, and just the general concepts and the marriage of cool genres seems really sweet. And for multiplayer folks or people who love searching, grinding, crafting, interacting with other players, this might be right up your alley. Right now, it seems like The Day Before is only gonna be on PC, but it is listed as coming soon. Down to number 3, of course, we have Resident Evil Village. Yes, it is a horror game, and maybe not technically totally a zombie game anymore, but we're gonna give it a pass due to a technicality. This game looks pretty sweet. It's been on all of our most anticipated lists. It continues Ethan Winters' adventure set up with Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil Village is of course going to introduce more Chris Redfield, seemingly the OG Chris Redfield, but he's up to something. We're really curious to see what it is and whether or not it ties the old games into the new games. Regardless, we have a lot of cool stuff here. Crazy monsters, weird creatures, werewolves, hot vampire ladies, and of course, some good old-fashioned survival horror elements. This is still slated for the summer despite many delays, and we know we're going to be jumping into this one day one as diehard Resident Evil fans. But down to number 2, another one that you could probably see coming, Dying Light 2. What more is there to say about this one other than that, oh god, we really hope it doesn't get delayed again and it really comes out this year. Despite apparently, reportedly, having some development issues, the concept behind Dying Light 2 is just really sweet. It takes place further after the apocalypse where new societies are kind of rebuilding around this world that is infested with zombies, and once again, you're parkouring during the day, fighting off dudes and zombies, and by night, running away from even scarier zombies. Dying Light 2 is notable because the first game was extremely underrated, probably one of the cooler zombie games ever made, and it was supported really, really well. Dying Light 2 seems to take that all further with a bigger world, more agency, more violence, more abilities, and also decisions that affect the world around you. We're really curious to see how these RPG elements really tie in and come together, but we think the potential is there. And if this thing still releases in 2021 for all the major consoles, we're in. Now down to number 1, of course, our most anticipated zombie game of 2021 is Back 4 Blood. This is from Turtle Rock Studios, a team comprised of many of the people behind the beloved Left 4 Dead games. Yes, they made Evolve, that was a different publisher, maybe there were some issues there, but from what we've seen and what people have gotten access to the alpha for this game, Back 4 Blood seems like a return to form, a return to that Left 4 Dead glory that so many people have been chasing, not to mention just fans, but also other game developers. Thankfully, it is simple. It's you and your friends cooperatively blasting a bunch of zombies and creatures, and from what we've seen so far, the violence and the blood seems cooler and amped up, the weapons seem more awesome. It seems like the developers are doing the right thing this time around with microtransactions and how they're handled, and we're just really excited to see where this one is gonna go. It seems pretty fully featured from what we've seen. It's got the cooperative campaign to bounce around in, it's got 8 customizable characters, it's got the competitive multiplayer, and as you know, if you've played Left 4 Dead, a lot of this stuff is just really replayable, and when you got a good group going, these games are unmatched. So we're really hoping that Back 4 Blood can achieve that former glory. And we won't have to wait too much longer because it's releasing June 22nd, 2021. Those are some zombie games we're looking forward to this year, but of course we got some bonus ones we also want to highlight. First and foremost, Days Gone is releasing on PC, so if you haven't checked that out on PlayStation, you definitely should. It's an underrated zombie game. Also, Resident Evil Reverse, the multiplayer mode for Resident Evil Village, is also releasing this year. Another one worth briefly mentioning is No More Room in Hell 2. This is seemingly releasing this year, and it's a follow-up to the surprise hit that blew up Steam a couple years back. And maybe it's releasing this year, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Quarantine, or whatever they're calling it these days. It's been quiet, but the concept seems really cool, and there are zombie-like creatures. Also, it would be crazy if we didn't at least briefly mention State of Decay 3. Undead Labs has confirmed they are working on this game. All we've gotten so far is a cinematic trailer. We're really excited to see where they could take it, and although we don't know if this one is making it in 2020, we just wanted to drop it a quick mention. Like we said though, these are all the zombie games we're looking forward to throughout 2021, so we want to hear from you guys in the comments what you're looking forward to playing. Be sure to let us know because we tailor our videos around you guys, whatever interests you. Let's talk anything zombie games down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and maybe even you learned about a new game, clicking the like button helps us out, legit. But if you're new, consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.